Breaking. King Charles just made a decision so explosive that Keir Starmer's government is on the verge of collapse. The king has imposed what insiders are calling a royal ban that could end modern British politics as we know it. And what happened in the streets of London in the last 60 minutes will be studied for decades as the moment Britain fractured beyond repair. If you want to understand what's really happening to our country right now, hit that subscribe button, because the next 14 minutes will change everything you thought you knew about power in Britain. Here's what sparked the constitutional earthquake that's tearing Britain apart. At 9:47 a.m. this morning, King Charles summoned the Prime Minister to Buckingham Palace for an emergency meeting. No advance notice, no formal protocol, just a royal command that couldn't be refused. The message delivered to Downing Street was chilling. His Majesty requires the Prime Minister's immediate presence on a matter of grave constitutional importance. Starmer arrived at 10:15 a.m., looking visibly shaken. Palace staff later described him as pale, sweating despite the cold November morning. But Keir Starmer wasn't prepared for what came next. The king didn't just suggest or recommend, he issued a direct order that no modern prime minister has ever faced. The Constitution would never be the same. Inside the audience chamber, witnesses say King Charles stood rather than sitting, as protocol normally demands. His exact words were chilling, and sources who heard them describe a tone of barely controlled fury. Prime Minister, your government's treatment of British military veterans, while prioritizing irregular migrants, has crossed a line I cannot ignore. Effective immediately, I am invoking my constitutional authority under the royal prerogative to suspend all new asylum processing until Parliament addresses the veteran housing crisis. The response was swift and devastating. Starmer, according to two separate palace sources, went bright red and shouted at the monarch, "Your Majesty, with respect, you have no such authority. Parliament is sovereign. This is 2025, not 1625. The room temperature dropped instantly. Private secretaries exchanged horrified glances. One later told friends he'd never witnessed such a breach of protocol in 30 years of royal service. Within hours, the hammer fell. The king's private secretary released an official statement confirming the royal ban. The language was precise, measured, and absolutely devastating. His Majesty has exercised powers granted under constitutional precedent to ensure the welfare of those who serve. The Crown takes precedence over political expedience, according to senior Conservative MP Jacob Rees-Mogg. This is the most significant assertion of royal authority since Queen Anne refused royal assent in 1708. The king has just reminded Parliament that sovereignty in Britain is shared, not absolute. But wait, because there's another layer to this confrontation that makes it even more explosive. Sources inside the palace reveal that King Charles presented Starmer with a dossier during their meeting, a thick folder containing photographs, testimonies and case files of 47 specific veterans currently living rough on British streets. One photograph allegedly showed a former Royal Marine sleeping in a doorway less than 2 miles from Parliament itself. The king literally placed these photographs on the table in front of the Prime Minister. One witness recalled and said, "Explain to me how this is acceptable in the nation I serve." Starmer reportedly had no answer. He shuffled through the papers, his hands visibly trembling, and then tried to deflect by talking about budget constraints and complex policy considerations. That's when King Charles delivered what insiders are calling the knockout blow. Prime Minister, when policy becomes an excuse for inhumanity, it ceases to be policy and becomes betrayal. The words hung in the air like a death sentence for Starmer's credibility. Meanwhile, British veterans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan are living in council flats with black mold waiting lists stretching 18 months and pension delays that leave families choosing between heating and eating. James Richardson, a 54-year-old former sergeant who lost his leg in Helmand Province, was evicted from temporary housing just 3 weeks ago. He's been sleeping in his car outside a veterans charity office in Manchester, queuing each morning, hoping for a hot meal and maybe a shower. "I gave my leg for this country," Richardson told reporters, with tears streaming down his face. "And now